Alright guys, this is just my video sharing my experiences with dieting. Just kind of from a simple perspective, when I was riding my bike across the country, I'm not one to really care about my diet that much. In fact, I don't really eat to even enjoy eating, I just eat to survive. That's something that my mom always tells me. But yeah, on the cross country trip, I learned a lot about dieting and what you should be eating to really sustain yourself if you're going to be doing large amounts of physical activity. Um, so going into cross country riding, back home here in Pennsylvania, I always just ate apples and drank Gatorade, and that was kind of my thing, along with energy bars along the way. And that got me through quite a bit until I started planning to do this large cross country trip, and I had a friend, a very generous friend, who was able to give me a lot of Gatorade and a lot of these Gatorade energy bars called Whey bars. I'm not really sure what Whey is. I don't know too much about it. But from what I understood, it was really healthy, and it was the type of thing you should be eating to sustain yourself if you're going to be doing large physical activities. So going into the first week and a half, I think, I literally was just eating these Gatorade product Whey bars and drinking a lot of Gatorade. I was drinking probably 1/3 Gatorade, 2/3 water, and that's how I was getting through each day. And at night, me and John would camp out, and we had a lot of canned food with us too. So every night we'd open up like canned ravioli or something on a gas stove, and that's what we did for the first week and a half, maybe 2 weeks of the trip. And that was working out all right. We were enjoying ourselves. I didn't really have any problems. Once we got to like western Ohio, Indiana, it got really windy, so I was working harder each day to try and keep the mileage up. And then we got to St. Louis, and that's when I bonked, when I hit my wall, when I basically ran out of steam. Everything in me was gone, ran out of all energy. I think I got 80 miles that day, and I got to just the eastern side of St. Louis into, I believe, Edwardsville. And yeah, I was on one of those designated trails for cyclists. I was cutting through the countryside. It was a lot of fields and cutting in and out of forest lands, but there weren't any roads around, so it was real nice and peaceful. But I started having to stop. I don't even know why. Like, my mental state was just gone. I was completely demoralized in a sense. I kept finding myself getting off my bicycle and literally laying down on the side of the road or the side of the trail. I remember getting to this little wooden walking bridge and just getting off my bicycle and sitting on this bridge for maybe a half hour and just talking to myself and being like, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you stopping? Why can't you keep going? Because mentally or emotionally, I was still there. I wanted to keep riding. I was just telling myself this is some kind of challenge and I can figure out a way to get through it. But, when your body's done, your body's done. Like, there's nothing else you can do about it. So I'm trying to tell myself, let's keep going. And my body is just not even responding. It's to the point where, you try and move your leg and mentally you're like, okay, my leg's moving, but you look down and nothing's happening. So, yeah, it was pretty scary. I mean, I'm laying down on the side of the trail about to pass out. Thought, John's never going to find me. No one's going to find me here for a while. So, it was getting a little dangerous. And then I met up with John, and we decided, it was best if we just drove the last 20 miles or so through the city. So I didn't actually get to ride through St. Louis, which is kind of a bummer. But we got to that church that night. I talked to my dad. I talked to my mom. I think I posted something on Facebook, but I was so cognitively not there that I know the text messages I had sent my dad would probably just, had a lot of grammar errors and weren't making much sense. But he got the idea that I was out of steam, and he thought I was dehydrated, which I probably was. I was probably malnourished, just completely empty. So he wanted me to go to a hospital, but that's just not really something that I like to do. that's just my own personal view. I don't really care for going to doctors that much. So I was trying to figure out how I'm going to beat this myself. And I told myself, well, you know what? I'm just going to, double the amount of whey bars I eat, or I'm going to double, I'm just going to double whatever food that I am eating, which was just canned raviolis and stuff like that. And that night, me and John just ate real good, and then we camped out behind a church. And then that next day, I started riding, which, wasn't really a problem. It was really hilly. It was a lot like being, back here in Pennsylvania. It's just a lot of hills. And I was enjoying it, having a good time. But I think about 20, 25 miles in, that's when it started hitting me again. And I realized, my body's still out of steam, and I really need to take some time off. So while I was riding, I just started thinking to myself, like, what's the, way that I can cut down, what's the way to phrase this? What's the best way I can let my body recover without missing too much riding or skipping out on an entire day of the adventure? So I had John pick me up about 23, 25 miles into my ride that day, and him and me just drove down to an Army base, Fort Leonard Wood, that he wanted to go check out since that's kind of his career path. So we went down there, and while we were there, I just ate a lot of normal food. We stopped and got pizza and stuff, and I just kind of pigged out, really. I just ate tons and tons of normal food because I hadn't really eaten anything besides these whey bars and drinking Gatorade and stuff like that. So for me, it was kind of like luxurious to be able to have normal food again. And then after that, we got to a church in the capital city of Missouri, and we stayed with a pastor's brother-in-law there, and it was a real nice family. The pastor was nice enough to take us out to Chipotle, and we got some big burritos, so that was more and more food for me to eat, more fuel to kind of recover. And we got to stay in beds that night, and we got to shower that night. So, it was kind of like a little mini vacation, and the family was super hospitable. So, I felt good. I was in good spirits going on the rest of the trip after that. And I went into it with another perspective after talking to a lot of my friends and talking to my dad and my mom about nutrition and like what I should be eating on this trip. And so the last 3.5 weeks of the trip, it really came down to a lot of eating peanut butter sandwiches and bananas. Those were my two main food items that I think I ate pretty much the entire rest of the way across the country. Every day I'd stop with John probably 2 or 3 times a day, and I would eat a couple sandwiches, a couple peanut butter sandwiches. Sometimes I would just put peanut butter right on the banana, and then I would just eat the banana. But that's I'm not much of a health nut. I don't really care to get into counting calories or looking at specific details of health, but that seemed to do pretty well for me. Just a lot of peanut butter sandwiches, bananas, and I upped my Gatorade intake to 2 bottles a day. So I was drinking 2 bottles of Gatorade and 2 bottles of water, probably more water than that. But so about 50-50 Gatorade, peanut butter sandwiches, and bananas really got me through the rest of the trip. And of course, along the way, especially the last couple weeks of the trip, me and John were stopping at Subway a lot, having a lot of sandwiches. We started seeing a lot more Taco Bells, which is something we don't have many of in Pennsylvania, especially close by here where I live. So it was kind of a nice treat to stop and have Taco Bell like every couple days, basically. And then one other very interesting thing that I was noticing throughout the entire trip was I don't think I was having a lot of sugar in general. So when we get to hotels, I remember specifically, I think it was Lawrence. Yeah, I guess it was just Lawrence, Kansas. We got to a Best Western that we were going to stay at for the weekend, and we went into the restaurant next door, and I just drank so much soda. I probably went through 3 glasses of soda in one sitting there at the restaurant, and we just started noticing that every time we'd get to a hotel on the weekend, I would get a 2-liter of soda, and I would chug it in like 30 minutes. And I think that had to do with just not having that much sugar along the trip. And I started noticing too, and especially in Wyoming, I started buying a lot of Mike and Ike. I don't know why, but I've had this fascination with the candy Mike and Ikes for quite some time now. So I was buying a lot of those once I got into Wyoming. And when I was eating all of them, I started noticing along the way that my shorts were actually starting to turn white. It was like a white, dust or powder or something in my shorts. And I think what that was actually like sugar or salt or something that was in those Mike and Ikes that I was eating, sweating through my skin and then getting trapped in my black biking shorts. So that was something interesting that I don't know much about. I'm not very much into a science stuff, so if anyone else out there knows what that is and wants to comment, let me know. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting that when I was eating this sugary candy, it was actually seeping through my clothes. So yeah, other than that, yeah, eating a lot of bananas and the peanut butter again. That's really what got me through the cross country trip. Every couple days, every 5 days or so, or on the weekends, I thought it was important to have normal meals and eat regular food and eat a lot of it to try and kind of not necessarily make up for not eating it all that other time, but just to kind of like give yourself a chance to breathe and get back to normal dieting or normal food that you would have outside of doing this stuff, but not overdoing it to a point where you're going to make yourself sick the next day when you have to actually go out and ride. But it's important because what you eat also affects your mental state, your morale, whatever you want to call it. So treating yourself along the way, stopping for ice cream or something, flagging down an ice cream truck. I did that in Baltimore once, and that was probably one of the greatest ways I ever spent $2. But yeah, things like that, it's gonna make you feel good. You're gonna be happier, and I think overall it just kind of makes the adventure better. So it's up to you to really figure out what exactly you're gonna need to eat if you really want to look into the calorie intake, that sort of thing. From what I understand, a person of my physique, whatever, I'm like 5'9", 120 pounds, kind of a small guy, but they say I should have been taking in closer to like 5,000 or 6,000 calories along the way. I have no idea what I was actually taking in each day, but whatever it was, obviously the peanut butter sandwiches and bananas got me through it. But I do recommend, if you're going to do this sort of thing, that you really look into food that's going to sustain you, something hearty, something that's going to fill you up, but also keep you going. And at the same time, you want to try and find something that's tasty, something you like. I've lived off peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for like the past 3 years just because of my work. I just make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day for work when I was landscaping. So, I was comfortable with the sandwiches. It made sense to me. So for you, you're going to want to find something that you enjoy eating. Obviously, you're going to have to get used to eating it every single day for several weeks, something like that. So yeah, do your own research, but just remember it's got to be something healthy at the same time. You can't just pick something crappy, something that you just like pizza rolls or something. But, figure it out. That's my simple man's guide to dieting for a cross-country trip, if you want to call it that. So I'll see you in the next video.